Yo, 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 Hollow Knight Nation! Yeah! Hollow Knight Nation. We're back again with another heal-less run, no healing challenge. That's right, baby. We're doing the 5th binding of no healing. It's gonna be super exciting. Can he do it? Can he win? Or at least how far will he go? Will I get past Oblobbles? Question mark. That so far is my my furthest record, my PB in this heal-less challenge. Ooh, how exciting is this? Ooh, I'm getting shivers. Anyway, I want to talk about my next Pathfinder character. I mentioned last video, but that my character left the party, and now I need to make a new one. Essentially, what's up is that we have, aside from me, 3 other players. The first one is like a elfish ranger from a far-off elvish country that pretty much just a hunter-gatherer society, kind of, but they have some strange customs of loving plants very much, like leaving them entirely holy, disallowing any form of mingling with those plants, except by the highest priests, meaning that all of them are like the opposite of vegetarians. They only eat animals because plants are holy. And they kind of refuse any other stuff, touching plants. They don't like that. It's a taboo. So they just exclusively eat meat, and they also eat each other. They're cannibals. The guy's just kind of an overall freak compared to the environment he's in. Just a ranger guy who lives off the land, only eats animals, eats other people. He whenever he kills someone, he just immediately starts not cooking them, but preparing them, or just put them in the bag. Cannibalistic, really fucking weird. It's awesome though. He also smokes a lot of bugs that are apparently hallucinogenic or something. I don't know. That's the first character. He doesn't really have that many opinions on things, except that I think this is weird. I think my land is better, and that's kind of his shtick. Second character, his name is Grimshot. That's at least his calling name. He's never told his real name, and no one asked. He is a bounty hunter who likes crystal, the currency in this world, and he likes to do things right. He's a lawful character, very much lawful, not really good. He's a bounty hunter after all. Yeah, just really good with the gun. Likes to do contracts and secure money to get better guns, and he does seemingly have some stronger moral code that has been showcased more and more in the recent few sessions. That suggests he might have some interesting philosophies and maybe interesting reasons for why he, chose a life of killing. But so far, that's not really been showcased anymore. So he just seems like this heartless drone who kills people for money. But quite recently, he almost sacrificed his own life to save a bunch of innocents. So hey, guy might be a cool dude anyway. It's going to be interesting to see. Otherwise, just a very standard Western bounty hunter type being. Lastly, we have the third character. Yalia Vadrak. He's an inventor, fucking Giga Chad. He's in his mid-30s, wielding a gigantic metal suit, basically an Iron Man suit in this world. But it can't fly, it can't shoot beams. It's just a big piece of armor with some techie aspects of it. That is his magnum opus. He made an incredibly ingenious suit of armor, and he's like, "Hey guys, this is awesome." And everyone's like, "Yo, this guy's awesome. Let's see what he can do." He gets some funding. And he starts making more shit, and he starts making bombs. He makes fucking bombs. What the fuck? People are a bit okay, interesting. Why are you still interested in bombs? He claims that he could heal people. He can make bombs that heal people. They called him crazy. They said it couldn't be done. And by all means, they were right. That's a fucking stupid idea. And they kick him out of the city, and saying, "Yeah, man, you could experience these explosions in this other city. Sorry, you know what? You can be king of that city. Just go there." And he's like, "Oh, I could be king." He goes there. Turns out no one was told in this city that he was going to be king, and no one cares about him. Also, the city fucking sucks. Pretty bummed about that. Anyway, he likes explosions. He can make them healing. He can actually make them healing. But that's not really his character anymore. He was just happy, motivated, passionate guy who wanted to become a king, to make a perfect society where everyone could invent whatever they wanted, where the wealth and knowledge was distributed evenly among the entire people, rich and poor alike, not just gatekept by the rich people, gatekept. that the inventors could only be rich and they could only achieve greatness. Where he was a poor inventor, he may have gotten some funding by once, but as soon as his path stopped being like exclusively warfare or whatever, becoming healing explosives, he was cast out and he doesn't like that. Anyway, he wants to be king. To make a long story short, everyone in the city he was to be king for died horrifically, and it was kind of his fault. So now he's depressed, and he's been depressed for the last like 3 sessions. He's just got no agency in any decision. He's just scared of doing anything, and he's just kind of. As the players explained multiple times, this character kind of sucks to play right now. It's just a depressed guy who's really sorry about like riddled with guilt, and he can't do much anything. So he just kind of follows the other characters around. So that's like the main cast right now, and I have to make a character that can kind of fit well in with these, or like perhaps explore their characters in an interesting way. I think my character, who just left the party, was very much ego-centered and like had its own shtick going on, its very own spiel, and that spiel has kind of like led to some detriment for the other players a lot, meaning that like his decisions is causing huge ramifications and consequences for them. Including the last act he did where he killed a bunch of innocent people as part of like, a terrorist attack against the country he hates. And blamed the rest of the party for it, and left the party. It was something that I talked to the other players about, asked, hey, is this cool if I do this? Do you think it would be awesome? And they were like, yeah, no, it's kind of awesome. And I did it, and my character left the party and is now the next villain of the story. The main villain now. Pretty interesting. Anyway, I gotta make a new one, new character. And I'm thinking I'll be a bard, In terms of stat-wise, that's definitely kind of what we need. We have 2 intelligent fiends and 2 dexterity fiends in the sense that the inventor is like an intelligence guy and a strength guy. That's his build. The gunslinger is a dexterity guy and also an intelligence guy because he's also kind of an alchemic guy. And then lastly, we have the ranger who is like a wisdom and dexterity. So all those stats and the roles in the party are kind of filled. So what we kind of need is a healer specifically. We have the healing explosive guy. He can do that. But I don't know. Another support character would be really nice. Any mage. We don't have any direct mage. Support, healer, charisma, that kind of thing. Originally, I was gonna play a priest, like a cleric. Turns out Pathfinder clerics suck. They just don't seem fun at all. Their spells are all of them targeted towards like, oh, you get abilities that help you do more damage, or that you can make you heal a lot more, or they can make you like divination, learn things about the world. Like, oh, ask your god some question, you can get an answer. I feel like all of those are so fucking boring and like easy to use. Like, oh, you get a lot of damage spell. Yay! What does it do? It just deals harm. It's so-called harm and harms someone. Any cool flavor to that? No, they just hurt. And that is conceptually cool, as in like a power fantasy type beat, but that's not really what I'm here for. So that's not cool. Healing, of course, as well, is like super useful and a lot more interesting, arguably, because you can heal people, friends and foes. Everyone likes being healed, and it'll create some happiness between people, But divination, asking your god for help, is like so fucking boring. You're like wondering, oh, what should I do? Like, we gotta find this guy who's like running away from the law. Maybe we should track some clues. Maybe we should like gather some information on the locals. No, I'm just gonna cast my spell that tells me where he is. So boring. I don't want to use those spells. They sound boring. The rest of the class is centered about like having a divine weapon. You get like a weapon of choice no matter what. I can't just play like a pacifist cleric, which was kind of what I wanted. So overall, not interested in cleric thing. I'm gonna go bard instead. Currently, the character that I'm thinking of playing, that I kind of mentioned to the DM, hey, this is kind of where I'm at right now. I've not made a character sheet or any like official backstory, but I've just given him some vibes of what I want to do. And there's a character that I actually kind of need to describe someone else first. I mentioned the gunslinger in the party and how he was he had some like moral code maybe secretly. That was kind of a shtick. It does have like a third shtick, being that in this campaign, like there's just a god of death or like some thing like it at least. A character named Sombra who we meet whenever we die. Instead of rolling death saves, we go into like some sort of dream world or like a limbo where we meet the god of death who judges us if we're worthy to live or not. And essentially, instead of rolling a death save, 3 death saves, we gotta defeat him 3 times in any given like chosen challenge. We get to ask the contest, like I want to do a contest of sharpshooting if you're the gunslinger guy, and then you and death battle to be the best gunslinger, and if you're the best one, you get to live. And it's very creative, very fun, and very thematic for the world as well. Super interesting. I love it. But the guy's kind of an asshole. The way he speaks, the way he acts, the way he's like super confident, always kind of claiming, yeah, you're gonna die soon, blah blah blah. Oh yeah, you made it this time. Good luck though. He's not really very likable for the characters. And the entire city got destroyed thing that I mentioned earlier. A bunch of innocent people died. He knew it was gonna happen and like warned us, kind of. Like he just showed up randomly, like, hey, you guys got 2 minutes. Like no, that. He pulls up 2 fingers and says, hey, like it taps his wrist like he has a watch and puts up 2 fingers, like oh, and he disappears. He does that for every one of our characters, so we get to see it. Like super weird, super ominous, like alright, maybe there's something that's gonna happen in 2 days or something. We quickly gather up our things and like decide what do we do, and boom, a nuke goes off and everyone fucking dies in this entire city. And of course it wasn't him who did it, like we know who did it, except for this one character. The gunslinger guy blamed Sombra for this, like the god of death for that. That was entirely his fault because he knew it was coming. He even warned us like 2 seconds. That's not a warning. He's like 2 minutes before it happened. He didn't even say 2 minutes or what happened. He just said, hey, look guys, I know what's gonna happen. Ha ha. And then he dipped. So the gunslinger guy wants to kill death. He really doesn't like him. And I think that's an interesting plot line that my previous character did not care for at all, and the other characters don't really care for much either. But this is strong motivation and an interesting plotline, I think. The quest to kill death, like learning a bunch of things about this god of death and see if maybe he's mortal. I think that's an interesting plotline that is not really being explored that much right now. And if any of the plotlines so far, I think that's going to be the most interesting to hatch onto, because if you remember the other 2 characters, the one guy had a goal of becoming a king. Entire people died brutally and horrifically, and now he's just depressed. He doesn't have any strong goals, so there's not much like I can latch onto there. Then there's the ranger guy, who of course like his entire shtick is that just like he's an outsider and he doesn't really have any goals. He's an outcast and he just wanders along. No big motivation. And you know what, like a good thing for a character you pull in later, like a character who comes into the story later, is if they have some relevance to the characters already, so you don't have to like have an awkward face of maybe you shouldn't join us. I guess you can tag along for the way. My character wants agency and a reason to have it, and that agency is gonna be that she knows about Sombra and she knows information that the other players don't know. I'm gonna ask the DM like, hey, can I get some more info about this guy, that is a Sombra guy that the other players will be really interested in? Maybe even have like a quest prepared that I can propose for the players to learn even more shit about them. I'm gonna say, hey, I know a lot about Sombra. I'll tell you some of it. But the real knowledge is in this quest if you help me with this kind of job. That's a good way to like join up as a group, right? I think that's gonna be a sick idea. So I'm gonna play a bard, a necromancer bard, who plays a flute to reanimate corpses and shit. Whose main shtick, I wanted to be like something to do with tragedy. Like, first of all, I wanted to do with like she wants to find Sombra or find something. She's very interested in Sombra, this god death character, mainly because it'll tie her into the plotline of the other, the gunslinger character, who is also, I should say, like the biggest hater of my previous character. Like the 2 of them had big ass fucking beef. They were really not fans of each other, which is kind of a fun dynamic of just like really hating each other. But I think it'll be a nice contrast if we like just become really fucking good friends, you and agree, at least for a while. Anyway, that established, I also want to explore the second character, like the inventor's shtick, because he's mentioned that he doesn't like how his character is super depressed and no agency. It's his own volition that he's acting like this, but he just kind of wants something to push him along with the character or whatever. And I'm thinking maybe I should make a character that could kind of help him with that. Originally, it was going to be that priest guy who could show him the light of God. But instead, it might be another character who might share his sorrow. Maybe not to the same extent of killing an entire city, but maybe just killing a loved one. I'm thinking this could be a bard who maybe accidentally killed her husband in some tragic tale, and now is desperately clinging on to this hope of finding death and robbing back her husband of them afterlife. I think that's an interesting character concept. That ties in with both of those characters pretty well. The final guy, his whole shtick is being an outsider. I thought about adding like a drug abuse ability, like a concept where my character would be like heavily addicted to some drug that her husband developed, if the husband was an alchemist or something. Because another established thing about the character is that he is super fucking addicted to bugs. He just turns into powder and smokes. It's just kind of a side gag, honestly. And it is just kind of that. It's just a side gag. He doesn't get any penalty or bonus from being high. Just an excuse for him to act high and make other NPCs high. It's just a fun gimmick, honestly. So honestly, I'm kind of going away from that. I don't know if my character should be a drug addict. I think maybe they already have a lot going on with the whole wants to rob death to get her husband back. Doesn't need to fit in with all the three characters perfectly. I think that's good enough. One thing that I'm kind of considering though is how to make a good bard character, bard necromancer character, because a lot of the thing that I was struggling with was how to make her both like a happy, friendly bard. You know, like a bard is usually pretty friendly, while also being like a fucking depressed drug addict. You know, they don't really combine very well, I feel. Maybe it should be like a sad thing where like, oh, he acts super happy, acts super tough, and acts super crazy and happy, blah, blah, blah. But then she is actually this really depressed bum. Problem is I just don't really like those kind of characters in fiction generally. They just don't really appeal that much to me as they may do for others. Other problem is like frantically in love, like romance plotlines aren't really my big thing either. So making a character who his entire motivation is she's super in love with her husband and wants to bring her back only work for as long as she doesn't succeed. Like when her husband shows up, I'll be like, oh okay, cool. I'm not gonna enjoy romancing with my DM, you know. I feel that's gonna be kind of weird. Maybe that's not that bad. I don't know. That's not really the issue. The issue is that I'm just kind of right now trying to define a proper shtick. I have a bunch of ideas. Those are just a few that I've mostly settled on. But I have a bunch of ideas to how like, different gimmicks my character could have. But I need a shtick. I have gimmicks and need a shtick. I need something that like defines my character's personality-wise as well, and not just lore, not just like relevance to the other characters, but also personality. Being super depressed could be an interesting route because you know we already have one. It helps a bit. But it makes it hard to be a proper bard. Being a super like alcoholic or like drug abuse, who's super happy, good lucky, and friendly, except when her high stops like being on, like she runs out of drugs and then becomes super depressed. That's also an idea that I have. That could be interesting. I could also like provide an interesting foil for the inventor character that is super depressed and wants to overcome that depression and guilt. Sees another character who seemingly overcome that guilt, but it's through a really self-destructive mean of, you know, substance abuse. I think, yeah, I'm kind of going back to the substance abuse plotline. I think that's pretty good. So she would just be like a bard, really pretty standard bard, honestly, who's super happy, super energized, super excited for the plotline. Doesn't want to wait, and is curious about the other characters. Maybe a bit selfish, although my last character was super fucking selfish and downright evil, so I do kind of want to contrast it by making someone who's good, but maybe they don't need to be a paragon. Should still have some evil in there. Yeah, I think I have a good settled idea. A bard who's a pretty standard good person, energetic, happy person, until she runs out of her drugs and just cries and sobs and do nothing else. It could be an interesting like basically the gimmick. My character would basically have a new ration, basically. If I don't have enough drugs, I would just not be able to do anything. I'm thinking mechanically, instead of just saying, oh, I roleplay as my character being sadder, I could like actively give myself a minus, holy shit, to all my spell attacks and shit, unless I'm on the drug. I feel like that could be an interesting gimmick. Or maybe Pathfinder has a bunch of conditions. Maybe you can just do like, oh, I'm fatigued 2 anytime I'm not on my fucking drugs, just out of like withdrawal. Dude, I've lost all my fucking new lifeblood. Jesus Christ. Yeah. So the problem is, for me to figure out a good character's motivation, like, no, I can do motivation, I can lore pretty well, but in order to like hammer down a personality trait, like personality shtick, that defines how to roleplay them, I kind of need to go off like a specific vibe of. I kind of need to start roleplaying. Imagine in my head how it works, or like work with others, or like find some fiction that I can play off of. You know, at some point you just kind of get a good idea of what the character is like and can work with that in your mind and just respond however they respond. You know, like I did with my previous character when he was just an evil guy. He's like, his whole shtick was he was longing, he wanted power, he wanted recognition. Like his most thing is what he wanted to be. He had a god complex and he wanted everyone to know he was a god and be loved and feared by everyone. In order to do that, he would either become a hero or just become really powerful and become a villain for the other team. You know? I don't know. Oh shit, fuck that. That character I really had locked down because it was a really detached shtick from my own and an easily recognizable idea. You know. Fame and power, classic villain and motivation. This character though, desperately in love, drug addict. I don't really have any good examples of that from fiction and ideas of mine that I can really think of right now. I just don't listen to that. I don't look at that kind of stuff in fiction often. Maybe I just don't like that kind of that in fiction a lot because I'm bad at stuff. Maybe like Disco Elysium, you know, you can get Harriet Dubois. Problem is he's not a good bard. I mean, he does sing, and he is potentially sometimes charismatic, but he would suck as a bard, and he would also be kind of a bad personally. Maybe I could do like a character who actually is trying to overcome her addiction. I don't know. I feel like I need to find something that can hammer, like put a nail in it and say, yeah, that's what we have Could also just be like a really standard normal person. But I feel like the cast doesn't need any more normal people because they are pretty normal. Aside from like the outsider characters, it was also just kind of normal. None of them have like no. I guess I'll never finish that thought. Goodbye.